Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you at 8 o'clock. Universities call for urgent government support following the U-turn over A-level grades as they prepare for a sharp increase in calls from anxious students.
I've just not been sleeping well for the past few nights, just been really stressed about my future. I'm hoping things turn out all right, and I just want some kind of certainty.
The Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, has resisted calls to resign and defended his actions. He told this programme he was sorry for the distress caused.
This is not something that anyone wanted, whether it was from our perspective or from the exam boards or Ofqual's perspective, but that's why we had to take action when we did.
Good morning. 7,000 jobs to go at M&S. Management, customer support and shop floors will feel the cuts within 3 months. The retailer says the future is still uncertain.
The Cavern Club, the legendary venue that launched the Beatles, is facing closure due to the coronavirus lockdown.
Good morning. The Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, has said on this programme he has every confidence in the exam system after a major U-turn over this year's A-level results.
Students will now be awarded grades set by teachers' assessments rather than by a computer algorithm.
About half an hour ago, Mr Williamson told BBC Breakfast he was setting up a task force to respond to universities' calls for urgent help to try and deal with the expected surge that will now follow in calls from students hoping to secure a place.
We've set up a task force with the university sector. How can we boost their capacity? Not just boosting their capacity for this year, but also looking at how we can boost their capacity for next year. We recognise some of the real challenges that universities face. We know that there's a clear expectation, that is on universities for them to welcome in so many youngsters who have achieved those grades.
Well, let's go through some of that with our political correspondent, Ian Watson, who joins us from Westminster. And like many other people, Ian, reacting to what you heard from the Education Secretary today, I think I was trying to count them as we went along. I think Louise asked him 4 times about his resignation, whether he'd considered that. I think he ignored that on all 4 occasions, but it is a major talking point.
It is a major talking point, Dan, of course, given the individual distress caused to many school students over the past few days. The questions been asked by Conservative MPs, for example, isn't so much about the U-turn, which they're delighted about, but how long it took the Education Secretary to get there. One of them said to me, look, a minister who makes school children cry is not in a good place. Another felt that because last week he was insisting there be no U-turn, then really his position should be untenable. Another suggested he might be reshuffled by the Prime Minister in the autumn. But as you say, he was asked on this programme, would he resign? He didn't say yes or no. He didn't say whether he had offered to resign. He chose to answer in his own way. He said that over the next year, he would be concentrating on building a world-beating education system. So I took that to be a no. And when he was asked had he spoken to the Prime Minister about this apparent mess, this is what he said.
I spoke with the Prime Minister, explained the situation, the fact that we needed to move to centre-assessed grades because it was the fairest system and the right system to do. But my focus is making sure that every student gets the grades that they deserve, making sure that we deliver the return of all children back to school in September.
Interestingly, I think from Gavin Williamson's point of view, he can use the exam regulator Ofqual as something of a human shield when it comes to his political career, because his allies are insisting that he asked them the right questions at the right time, and they were given reassurances that the most disadvantaged pupils would not be affected. So, for example, there's an education select committee, a cross-party committee that raised concerns back on the 10th of July, and I'm told that on the 16th of July, Gavin Williamson raised many of those concerns directly with Ofqual at a meeting with civil servants present, and he was told that the system that they were deciding upon, this controversial algorithm, would not produce results that would disadvantage those pupils. So I think one of the reasons he's still in his job is he can say that he was trying to deal with this system. He's a minister, not somebody who designs algorithms, but the questions still remain about why there was such a delay between a U-turn in Scotland last week and a U-turn in England this week.
OK, Ian Watson, thank you for that assessment of what the Education Secretary was saying on the programme this morning.
In other news, Marks & Spencer has announced that it plans to cut 7,000 jobs by the end of the year. The company said it had learnt to work more flexibly during lockdown, using the same staff for both the food aisles and the clothing section of stores. New technology would also allow it to reduce layers of management.
The Home Office says that it's working incredibly closely with Kent County Council after the local authority warned it would no longer be able to care safely for migrant children who come across the channel. More than 400 under-18s have arrived unaccompanied in Kent this year, including 13 in the past few days. Well, the government says it's providing extra support and increased funding to the council to try and help tackle what is called an unprecedented situation.
The Health Secretary Matt Hancock will outline plans for the future of public health in England later. He's expected to announce a new agency which will take over many functions of Public Health England, one of the organisations at the heart of the response to coronavirus. The body's faced criticism over its handling of the crisis, but some argue it's been made a scapegoat for failings elsewhere.
Michelle Obama has launched a scathing attack on Donald Trump, accusing the president of not being up to the job. The former First Lady was addressing the Democrat convention, which will see former Vice President Joe Biden formally accept the nomination for November's presidential election.
So it's 7 minutes past 8. It has been a year like no other for so many students and, of course, those receiving their A-level results, with the government reversing its decision to use grades calculated by this algorithm, which we've talked so much about.
When the results were released on Thursday, we heard from many students who felt the system had let them down. So has the decision then to use teacher or central assessed grades instead made their situation any better? We caught up with a few of them to try and find out.
I haven't really had any communication from my first choice university or indeed my insurance choice. I'm hoping the University of Bath get back to me soon because I've just not been sleeping well for the past few nights, just been really stressed about my future. I'm hoping things turn out all right and I just want some kind of certainty, so I know that hopefully I'll be going to Bath in September.
Ofqual's algorithm predicted me at a DDB, but with the announcement saying that we are allowed our predicted grades, I am now predicted at an ABC, which has made me so relieved because now my first choice university is considering me again by holding a place for me.
My course is very popular at my firm choice, which means I will be able to get on it anyway now. If the government had decided to act sooner and done it before they'd given the results to students, then it would be a different story and I might have been at my firm choice.
Right, let's speak to one university, because universities are preparing to deal with an increase in calls from students in England. That temporary limit imposed for this year on student places has been lifted. Universities, though, warning there's a limit to what they can do. And we're joined now by Ian Dunn, who's the Chief Academic Officer at Coventry University. Morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, have you got places at the university, I suppose is the first question?
Yes, we have, yes. And most universities will have some places on many courses, actually. There are always going to be some courses which are full on professional body requirements, nursing, medicine, things like that. And once those places are filled, then they're filled, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but yes. And
how has it affected the students who are applying for your university, the fact that they had these grades decided by an algorithm? Did some of them lose out?
Well, we're checking right now to make sure that we haven't got anyone that's lost out. We made a decision very early on, actually, before the results were published. We felt that there was going to be unfairness in the system, and we had decided to look at predicted grades alongside the calculated grades because we actually trust the teachers to make a real assessment. This is an extraordinary year. There weren't examinations, and so we thought that with the best results that we could possibly consider would be those that the teachers had calculated. People who'd spent up to 7 years working with young people really know them.
Lots of teachers making that point, actually, this morning to us, getting in touch with us as well. So what do you make of the government's decision to make this this decision, but kind of so late after so many students had opened their results and had to already apply for universities?
It's tragic, isn't it, really? It's really sad. I'm delighted that the government have made the decision. It is, I think, the right decision. It's such an extraordinary to try and achieve comparability with previous years in order to maintain a national examinations picture is, I think, faintly ridiculous in light of the situation in which we're living. These are young people who've been out of formal education for 6 months, and you know, to impose this extra pressure has just been cruel. I'm sorry, it's just cruel. We've known all along that an algorithm is a statistical model that is going to try and maintain a national picture, but it hasn't taken into account the individual schools in particular circumstances, and more importantly, individuals and individual students. And so, you know, I chair the board at the Sydney Stringer Academy in Coventry, an inner city, an outstanding secondary school. 60% of our young people were downgraded on the calculated grades. 28 out of 29 maths entrants were downgraded. That can't be right in an inner city comprehensive school of outstanding characteristic.
And we know...
So,
oh, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to ask one last question, if I could, about universities in England allowed to... There was a cap, wasn't there, of 5% more students than their targets this year. They've now lifted that cap. Will you be able to accommodate that, do you think?
Well, everyone is now sort of trying to figure out how to make that assessment. Some subjects are perhaps easier to make those accommodations than others. It depends on facilities, and particularly in this year when, of course, we've got all of the social distancing measures that we have to put in place. So it's really complicated, and it's going to take a few days. But what I'd advise is to young people is to get in touch, to call those universities, and to talk to us. We're at Coventry completely ready to talk to individuals, to schools, and to give advice to help people make those decisions.
Ian Dunn, I expect you'll be getting lots of calls today at the University of Coventry. Thank you very much. Thank you.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.